Okay, we have the green bars, we have the live counter ticking up, so we should now be live, which of course means welcome back to the Storytime Network.
We also have a duck
Oh god, we didn't
with
pay
a knife.
we didn't pay the exterminator this month.
You cannot rid... Yes, you can't be rid of me that easily. It'll require at least 6 more exorcisms.
I'll get the Catholic Church on the phone.
But on the subject of ducks, I'm thinking of... so, I mentioned this before stream. I'm now on ADHD medication. And while hopped up on what is... Well, it's methylphenidate, not amphetamine. Amphetamine is what is basically meth. Methylphenidate is a different one. They're both stimulants. But, look, you can also shorten methylphenidate to meth. So while I was hopped up on meth, I wrote a story about a drawing of a goose that comes to life because of the power of love.
Wow, those meds really did a number on you.
I'm gonna send you the story. Once you read it, you'll realize it is not actually that far out of my wheelhouse.
Fair
if you know
enough.
what I'm saying. There's some stuff. But, I'm actually, thinking, it's a children's story.
And yet it's not that far out of your usual wheelhouse.
So it's the type of... I tried to make it the type of children's story where it's a fun story for the kids, and meanwhile the parents will experience some thoughts about the nature of life and mortality.
Okay.
You know, like how children's stories always are.
At least the good ones.
Yes, I'm hoping so. So I want to turn it into a picture book. So I'm not quite serious about this. I want to maybe get this into a professional editor at some point. It'll be a bit expensive, but because it's short, I can probably afford it. And then I'll see about shopping around for an artist. If I was morally bankrupt, I would
use AI, yes.
Use AI, but sadly, I still have a sense of ethical and moral responsibility. So I'm going to actually pay probably more money than I can afford to turn it into a picture book and then try and get it actually published properly. So yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
The power of meth.
Thank you for not, how do I want to word this? Not sullying your morals just yet.
Yeah, no, I have to admit, the temptation of saving money it didn't even really occur to me, which is, I'm quite proud of. Because, it actually only just occurred to me that I could have used AI a little bit ago, but, from the get-go. The problem is, I also have a very specific art style I want for this, so I'm gonna have to look around and find an artist with the relevant art style, or see people or find someone who's a bit more flexible in that regard.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that in this children's story, there are, in fact, eldritch abominations from beyond reality.
It wouldn't be a you story without them.
Exactly. But yes, the so yeah, drugs, kids, don't do them unless prescribed by a proper medical professional. Disclaimer: we are not referring to methamphetamine and any attempted use. We are not legally responsible for any attempted use of methamphetamine to write stories about ducks or any other activities. We really should have included that disclaimer at the beginning.
I mean, here's the thing: meth has such a bad image that I don't think that we necessarily need to cover our asses on that one.
True, it is like
It's like it's like sort of honestly, I feel it's kind of like cigarettes at this point. If you smoke because you've seen like somebody on TV smoking and you think, "Oh, that's cool," that's kind of on you at that point. You know, it's not like it's not like there's not been enough about fucking you know, how bad cigarettes are for your health.
Yeah. So you know what's funny? My favorite streamer was talking about this, and I'm stealing the bit wholeheartedly because trickle down economics. The smoking seems to have partially skipped part of a generation, but in like a way that has ended up being not great, in the sense that a lot of Gen X and elder millennials realized how bad smoking was and then taught their kids, hey, don't smoke. So there is a generation of people who, other than the stupid and or rebellious ones, who did get sort of separated from smoking. But the problem is, and I believe we are at least partially included in that generation, as elder Zoomers. I'm also like, if there can be elder millennials, there can be elder Zoomers.
Yeah.
Because we did squeak past the cutoff.
Yeah.
So we are literally the first generation of Zoomers. But the problem is that because a lot of people in that little generational divide didn't experience the toil of smoking firsthand, they weren't as strict with their kids about it, and so you have so smoking, and in particular vaping, has seen a real resurgence.
Vaping is the one that, you know,
No, it's like not good for you.
No. I mean,
Anything
it's like I always say, if you are taking anything other than, you know, oxygen into your lungs, or, you know, the oxygen mixture that is in the air, you're probably doing something wrong.
Especially when it's hot.
Yeah.
Literally, the lungs are designed for some very specific temperatures. So inhaling hot smoke or vapor is not it. Like, for example, I'm not anti-weed. I am, however, anti-smoking weed.
Exactly. Look, if you want to take weed, go for it, but surely there are better ways of taking it than fucking smoking it.
The technology of edibles has improved drastically. Why not just do that?
I mean, hell, make some fucking brownies.
Make some brownies, get some gummies. There's even, like, probably skin patches now, aren't there? Like, there's so many ways to consider. Like, I say I'm not anti-weed mostly because I'm like, it doesn't appeal to me personally. Right?
Yeah.
The high and the loss of control, that just really doesn't appeal to me personally. If it was something more out there, like shrooms, especially with the recent research that psilocybin has like beneficial effects on certain mental illnesses.
Mhm.
Down for that. But the effects of weed, just the juice isn't worth the squeeze for me.
Mm.
Again, I've never actually experienced it, but there's more than enough data.
No, it's one of those things. You know, I'm 100% not going to stop anyone else from doing it. It's not for me. I'm
Yeah,
not
exactly.
interested in doing it.
But I would say, just don't. Please, why would you smoke it? There's just
Yeah.
popcorn lung is actually so that's what the primary illness caused by vaping is.
Yeah.
Popcorn lung and like
Mhm.
bronchitis. I don't know if they're the same thing or just colloquialisms for the same thing, but it's horrifying. It's a horrifying, debilitating illness that causes like lifelong complications and destroys the physical structure of your lungs.
Mhm.
Just
And weirdly, lungs are quite important if you want to
yeah,
live.
yeah. And the problem with vaping is it affects both lungs at once, so you can't even like remove one and like try and live with
Mhm.
one. But like apparently there's like vaping. I will admit, when I was in high school, there was a group of students who smoked, but they were very much in the minority. But now, apparently, vaping in high school and even middle school is just
Mm.
casual and accepted.
Yeah.
That's really. It's not gonna be great.
No.
Like a lot of like the younger Zoomers and some of the older Gen Alphas are gonna have some trouble
Yeah.
in their middle age. Assuming they reach middle age, which, you know. But yeah, I was like, I think drugs are a sensitive topic for a lot of people, regardless of whether. For example, I have a cousin
Mhm.
who otherwise she's a very smart individual. She really does not like taking medication even when she's sick. Though not for the stupid reasons. For the like very real reasons is that most medications, especially routine medications, do have lasting impacts on your liver and kidney health.
Mm.
Like she refuses to take painkillers even though she's on she has like migraines,
Mhm.
simply because they do have a very like this isn't like the sort of pseudoscience anti-vaxxer sort of rhetoric. There is a large body of scientific research that does say yes, painkillers do have a pretty significant effect on your liver in the long term.
Mm.
So it's something like even routine medications like Tylenol and like acetaminophen in general can
Yeah.
cause people to be leery. So it's like with recreational drugs, I'm kind of just like it's complicated, right? Because like you also have to take into account the different drugs have different thresholds and stuff,
Mhm.
right? Because like after a certain point, it's not just about like if everyone who took drugs just did it in the comfort of their own home, like in a chill fashion, that will be one thing. But the issue is when your altered states begin to have tangible effects on the people around you,
Yeah.
it's a little less easily justifiable.
Yeah.
And even if you even if the people around you don't necessarily notice, or like if you're not, even if you're not disruptive, just the knowledge that you're doing it can be a source of. So let me give you a tangible example. I also lived dangerously in my youth. I didn't do anything personally, but I did live on campus for the first year of my university, and one of the friends of my roommate, the icky roommate who I've complained about endlessly, was on speedball, which is a mixture of, I believe, either heroin and meth or cocaine and heroin, or it's a mixture.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you can tell just how bad it is. And he was not necessarily, well, he did once almost get alcohol poisoning, and I had to do some stuff, but he was never disruptive. But just the knowledge that he was on it, like, it was a combination of like sympathy and empathy and just anxiety that, well, it's volatile, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's just like, that's a very real stressor. So it's hard to like just shrug that off, you know?
No, 100%, 100%. I mean, I remember, God, it was probably the last time I saw these friends who do, recreationally take some drugs, but it is generally the low-level stuff.
Like weed and what is the low-level stuff other than weed?
God, what is it now? MDMA.
Oh yeah, ecstasy. Ecstasy is also MDMA is also one of those things that has recently been trialed for PTSD and depression treatment. But yeah, okay, yeah, ecstasy is one of the more. I don't want to say harmless because that's just not true. One of the more. Yeah, let's just call it the less harmful ones.
Less bad ones, certainly.
Yeah. So weed and ecstasy. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's alright. It's alright. But yeah, so, and as I said, last time we got together, they decided to get some, and I was like, yeah, that's I've learned which hills to die on at this point, in this regard, and they bought, but they didn't actually. I can't remember if they actually said the name or what, or if they just said they were going to get something. But they got some, and they came back in with baggies with white powder in it, and I'm just like, oh God, please tell me they haven't gone to cocaine. For the love of God, please, because that's a step too far. Please tell me no. Please tell me no. And eventually, I did speak up and just go, tell me that's not what I think it is. Oh no, it's just MDMA. Oh, thank fucking Christ.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, thank fucking Christ. No. Okay, I don't have to stage a fucking intervention.
You do definitely have to wonder about these things. Yeah.
So yeah, like, that was a slightly worrying scenario.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly natural to be a bit concerned about that sort of thing.
But like I said, and to be fair, they're pretty good about moderation. To be fair to them, certainly now they were less good at it. Back in fucking high school.
I will say, I'm kind of anti taking. So okay, this is This may be, in many people's eyes, going too far, and it actually segues into something I was thinking about recently with regards to fictional works.
Mm.
Really, the this is going to be a hard sell. Not to you, but to the general public, this is going to be a hard sell. The age of majority really needs to be raised from 18 to 25.
Okay,
Would you like me to elaborate?
go for it.
Prefrontal cortex development. 18 is a very arbitrary number, and it's like, just because that's when you end high school, that shouldn't mean, like, it shouldn't mean that you are treated as an adult and the people should not know. Like, it's, if we have to re-examine what exactly we want out of the age of majority. The age of majority is an arbitrary number, but if the idea is that you want people to be adults, then the age of majority is not it.
Mm.
You are not. I'm sorry, but like 18 is too young still. And it's like unrealistic to expect 18-year-olds to be able to have the sort of responsibilities that are foisted upon them. At least in my thought.
Mm.
Because, like, it's just there's a lot of issues here.
I can understand where you're coming from. At the
I'm
same
sensing
time,
a
but there is an element of certainly we are a generation who are going to suffer from the fact that, you know, decisions have been made for us while we were unable to do anything to change those decisions, that are going to affect us negatively for probably the rest of our lives.
Okay, yeah. From that angle, I can see where you're coming from.
The other thing is you're citing prefrontal cortex stuff development.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm aware, certainly the study that I'm thinking of isn't actually that good because it stopped at 25. So it's not necessarily that our prefrontal cortex stops developing at 25. It's just that that's when they stopped looking for it. So to make an argument on prefrontal cortex development, you can't necessarily say that stops at 25 as far as I'm aware. It's not something that I've personally done a lot of research in. I remember someone bringing it up relatively recently, and I did, you know, look into it a little bit. But it's obviously not my area of expertise as a, you know, fucking historian.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from. I will say I believe that the 25 thing is not just one study. I do believe there's a couple of others. And I believe that it is generally a consensus within the neurological community that if even if it doesn't stop, it slows down significantly enough at 25 that it's the difference is negligible. I think I'm
I mean,
So I understand your
we're,
concern.
we're coming at this from different perspectives, and I totally understand the perspective that you are coming from, which is that 18-year-olds are not should not be
They're not
put
equipped.
should not be put under the pressure of adult life at that age. They are not able to, handle it very well. Whereas the perspective I'm coming at it is more of a by doing that you sort of again you worsen the ability of these kids who are already will already struggle with life regardless of when they get chucked into it. You're then removing their ability to effect change sooner.
Okay, no, I totally get where you're coming from, and I do agree that you have a point. So I believe there should be. So I think the solution here then is a different breakdown
Mm.
of rights and responsibilities. So, okay, perhaps the way to go about this is you get the rights earlier, but you get to hold off on the responsibilities until you're a bit more developed.
Mm.
Does that make sense? It's a much bigger ask, but I think that's the way to do it. If your concerns are valid, and I think that's the best way to address those concerns is you separate the rights and responsibilities, and you apply the rights because people should have certain basic rights, like the ability to affect change that directly affects you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are basic rights that you should have, kind of regardless of age. And but it's the responsibilities that are an issue because I think far too much is expected of 18-year-olds.
Mm. And especially,
do you get what I'm saying?
No, 100%, and especially at this point where, where people are not just living longer than in previous generations, but are also in better health longer.
Yes. So the consequences of the actions will
are able to work for longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think that's the issue. You've got so many fucking 18-year-olds, entering life, and they're not able to actually, get proper jobs because the jobs that they, are wanting to get are filled up. Because there's, fucking 50 and 60-year-olds who theoretically, in previous generations would have retired by now. And instead holding on. And part of that is because, for some of them, they need the money.
Yeah, because it's harder to just live.
It's harder to live, and, I don't know about Canada, but, in the UK, the retirement age is, going up and up and up.
And it's not just because of harder to live reasons, it's that seniors are people too.
Hmm.
And with the extra health also comes like the continuation of like more active needs. Because it used to be that if you did live to old age, you'd be basically so broken down that you wouldn't really have the luxury to have like needs beyond your like fundamental survival needs.
Yeah.
But now people have their emotional needs, they have their needs of feeling useful and wanted.
Mm-hmm.
and that like the insecurities of like maybe being abandoned, things like there's a very complicated like set of psychological issues that go into it as well.
Mm.
So you are right. Is that it's a two-pronged issue. But it's definitely a valid concern.
I mean, it's
But
obviously not just that either. You know, there is also just an element of I feel like the divide in generations is significantly higher than it has been certainly for the last couple of generations. And so,
well, are you talking about the older, like the elders to the youngers, or are you talking about between the younger generations?
so in the sense of, you know, I feel like the opinions of, you know, the boomers and the Gen Xers are a lot more negative towards millennials and Gen Z than they necessarily are for, you know, the generations before, you know, the boomers and Gen X.
There is something to be said there. Yes, there's definitely a.
But you know what that means is
I
that
think it's
they are less likely to hire, you know, the fucking the Gen Z and millennials.
yeah, and
They don't they think, you know, they think we all suck. So
and part of that does have to do with the fact that information is much more widely available for the younger generations. And as a result, there's a bit more of an awareness of the consequences that our predecessors have had on us. And that does breed some resentment. And in the elder people who have been taught that seniority demands respect, when they're faced with something beyond just the sort of blind "you are older, therefore I should respect you," and more like, I think there's resentment on both sides for a very real lack of equality and equity. And the part of it is, I think, the older generations are resenting not only that the younger generations expect equal treatment, but they are to some extent able to get equal treatment when they themselves were not able to in the same circumstance.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's resentment on that end, and then there's just the general resentment of why should we be unequal just because of the circumstances of our birth and age? Right? So it's like, obviously one of those forms of resentment is a bit more justified than the other. However, I can understand the resentment of like seeing people have what you did not. Because envy is a natural emotion. It's not necessarily healthy when you act on it, but I don't think there's any human that doesn't feel envy.
Yeah.
Though, again, it's more justified in some cases than in others, but that's an entirely different conversation. I was gonna tie this back to a trope that I was thinking of in writing, but I actually forget which point of conversation was going to be that. Meds are useful, but they're not,
Infallible.
yeah. Ah, yes, I actually I found it was in my notes. I did find the trope I was going to talk about.
Alright.
There's a trend in modern novels, which have a lot of modern web novels, I will say, though there's probably a trend of that in formerly published works as well. That is one of the, I think, awkward reflections of reality on art, is that in these various fantasy worlds, authors are trying to have their cake and eat it too by having all their characters be 18 and above for legal liability reasons, but then having them act younger than that.
Yeah.
But also tying it into the magic system, where a lot of the time your awakening or your magical education starts at age 18, which is just very arbitrary and solely there for legal reasons. Because, like, you used to see a lot more of the people getting magic as kids or people getting magic as adults. Now it seems like they're trying to, again, have their cake and eat it too by having 18-year-olds that act like 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that is just like an unfortunate consequence of like liability and how laws work and stuff. But it's just a very 18 as the age when you get your magical powers is just very awkward for a number of both in and out of universe reasons. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, there's obviously, there is an element of, yes, you are right, well, the whole, whatchamacallit, writing fucking, fucking 18-year-olds as 12-year-olds thing is more about, certain writers just not being very good.
Well, it's more like it's a lot of the time it is just like they have just a general lack of life experience that doesn't really happen at the age of 18 unless you're incredibly sheltered, including the ones that are supposed to be not sheltered.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But again, though, I would chalk that more up to poor writing than I necessarily would an issue with it, with the concept itself.
I can definitely understand that, though the issue is when that tends to be the majority of the cases.
That's sort of the issue with what you are reading, in that it is web novels, and I'm guessing...
But I've seen this in, like, traditionally published fantasy stuff as well.
Just because they get traditionally published doesn't make them good authors.
True.
We've seen that far too many times. All it takes is one fucking idiot to go, I like this. I'm gonna chuck hundreds of thousands of insert your own currency here into promoting this and making this a worldwide juggernaut. And people will read it because people are shit and don't have good taste.
I mean, yeah. I'm not gonna fight you on that at all.
So, it's a hard situation, Yes, there are absolutely people writing, these characters that are probably, more childlike than they should be. Do you have a phobia or anything of cockroaches?
I do, but sadly, the neighborhood where I live has a bit of an issue with that. So
Are you watching the
can.
stream?
No, I don't think I would want to in that
Not
case.
right
If there's,
now, no. I can turn them off, or at least
I
change
mean,
them.
I'm just gonna like tune out in that case. But
Cause
I totally understand. Like, think of like I'm pretty sure there's a lot of viewers who would not really want to engage with that as well. So, you know,
yeah, we'll just turn it to broken glass.
yeah, that's probably for the best. I think.
Yeah, it's just something that struck me as I walked in and saw them. I don't particularly care.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan. I've been forced to get used to it due to circumstances. Like,
To be fair, it's not something I've ever really had to deal with in real life, so that's probably part of it.
yeah, yeah, North America definitely has issues in that regard. A lot of at least where I live, they're an issue. The worst part is you can do everything right and they'll still show up.
Yeah.
Like, it's like my family is very fastidious about like cleaning, almost to the point of like maybe too fastidious in some cases.
Yeah.
But it's just no matter how much we clean, they always seem to come back. Anyway, what were we saying? Right.
So yeah, there's definitely something to be said for there are absolutely authors who are, let's say, saying their characters are, in inverted commas, 18 to, get past certain moral quandaries,
Rating.
let's say.
Not just moral quandaries. There's just like rating and potential censorship issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
If your characters are too young, like if bad things happen to characters who are too young, then the rating
it's. I was more thinking on the potentially good side of things, depending on what age you are.
Oh yeah, yes, no, that's definitely a factor as well. No, that is absolutely a factor. It's just I think, yeah. Either way, it can cause issues. So I know, like, basically, I know what you're getting at. But yeah, there's legal reasons for it. There's like. There are reasons for it. It just strikes me as one of those things that's an unfortunate consequences of the sort of circumstances we live in.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that it never feels right. And so I was like, you have to kind of like, especially when it's in the context of magical powers, right? Like, I've read far too many this is, albeit more prevalent in web novels, but there's issues in like here's the thing. I say web novels, but I think what I'm trying to say is fantasy novels.
Yeah.
Because whether it's traditionally published or web published, fantasy is fantasy.
Mm.
And there are certain tropes and things.
Yes.
You get the opposite problem too, right? There's some characters, some authors who you really can't win, because there's some authors who write younger characters who definitely don't act their age in the opposite way.
Yes, who are too old. Yes.
They're not, like, they are far too put together and not nearly believably
Yes.
whatever age they're stated to be.
Mm-hmm. So part of it is also, I think, you know, they could go the route of, oh yes, they got their powers at, you know, fucking 10. But then if the story starts with them at 18 or 21 or whatever, and show that there is, you know, some actual stakes, they have to be, you know, not very good at this with this power, or, and you know, need things explained to them. How do I then get around the fact that they've supposedly had these powers for, you know, half their life, sort of thing?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you either have to write the story starting from when they're children, or you have to have them already be experienced, which can make exposition more difficult.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the way that I you know, it's not something I thought about when I did this, but the way that I've gone around this is that the powers come from fucking an outside influence that, you know, don't particularly care about age when they, you know.
There is also another
powers.
aspect I've seen from a community that I'm not the biggest fan of, which I believe I've established on multiple occasions, but the Hunter x Hunter community made a very good point in this regard, with a theory as to why Killua wasn't really told how the magic system worked, despite the fact that everyone, including his younger sibling, both of his younger siblings actually have magic powers.
Yeah.
And the reason I saw for it was that because the powers are imagination-based, giving them to a child who doesn't really is very playful and doesn't really have a strong, like, sense of responsibility would be very counterproductive.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. No, 100%.
Like, they might end up accidentally locking themselves into a power set that is not practical, or just they regret greatly down the line. So that's an argument that I've seen that I think is kind of valid.
Yeah.
So there definitely are valid arguments.
There's also, you know, you've got to think about it in terms of, you know, demographics. If it is young adult fantasy, then obviously the protagonists are going to be on the younger side.
Not just that, it's that even if they are even regardless of the demographic, if you want to have, like, a well-rounded cast of characters, you kind of have to go across the spectrum, right? But yeah, it's like, people complain when children act like children. People complain when children don't act like children. People complain when older people act like older people. People complain when older people don't act like older people. There's no winning.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, but the fact of the matter is, if you are just writing with a clear conscience, so to speak, you just kind of have to accept that there are going to be certain compromises that you have to make.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just such a... It's a topic that can... It's a thing that can very easily go wrong. But yeah, I, for example, do tend to... I have actually tended towards the extreme approaches. Where in my stories, either they are gaining magic as a grown-up, not necessarily like 18, obviously, but like when they're a bit older, or they're gaining it as a child and the story follows them growing up.
Yeah.
Because, like, it also, like, you can play with it. It's definitely one of those tropes that you can play around with. But I just, it can be hard to figure out where exactly to make your point. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's very, very difficult to get right.
Yeah.
Regardless of the circumstances. But yeah, it's just been something I've noticed, is that it's a trend in modern fantasy. Because, like, how much modern contemporary fantasy do you actually read other than the big names who have been established for a while?
Not that much.
Yeah, I tend to kind of... Again, I'm not trying to flex, I'm just, like, stating a fact. I read perhaps more than is healthy. And as a result, a lot of the fantasy I read is more contemporary. And because I've just run out of a lot of I've run out of most of the older stuff. So yeah, it's one of those things where you have to be very conscious of these things when writing, especially because especially when you're writing kids, right? Like, children just think differently. And people just think differently depending on how old they are. And I think one of the biggest issues, especially when you have, like, an ensemble cast, is just writing people who are not their age. You know what I'm saying? Like, it shows up with the older individuals as well. Because when you have a character who is older but still needs to be a vehicle for the audience, they just come across as kind of like dull or dense or stupid or just sheltered.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing if they're entering the world of magic, but if you're living in a world where magic is an established phenomenon, and you are sort of like, do you know what's a good example of this being done?
Go on.
You already know what I'm gonna say. Cradle.
Yeah.
Lyndon definitely... the story starts when he's 15, and he does in fact act like a 15-year-old. He's like more impulsive than he should be. He acts like a traumatized 15-year-old. So he's more mature than his age would suggest, but he's also prone to impulsivity and just acting without thinking and being a bit slow on the uptake with certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So he is very much, and Yeren definitely is a sheltered and relatively stupid is a sheltered teenager who acts like a sheltered teenager when she loses her shelter.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, if you really think about it, she, despite the harshness of her training, she was essentially royalty.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, she got harsh training, but she was sheltered from a lot of, like, what the majority of people her age go through in that world. Because her dad was a big shot.
Yeah. No, I mean, she didn't have to deal with the, posturing that a lot of her peers had to put up with.
She didn't have to deal with posturing. She didn't have to deal with resource scarcity.
Yeah.
She didn't have to deal with, like, politicking or, like, any of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, wherever she went, she was the child of a sage.
Yes.
So regardless of the circumstances, the way she was treated had a certain level of probably care that she would not have received otherwise.
Yeah.
And then, like, her running off to join the Skysworn, or her, like, constantly picking fights without realizing that there's, like, consequences for actions. So it's just, like, it's a very realistic depiction of someone of her age and circumstances.
Yeah. Speaking of Cradle, the short story anthology is out for the Kickstarter backers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can get it. I just haven't bothered to log into BackerKit yet. How was it? No spoilers, obviously, but how was it?
It was pretty good. It was, so there was one that was set before the book's timeline. There was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 that was set during the book's timeline, and then the rest was set afterwards.
Okay.
Some were set in the gap between, the rest of them ascending and Lyndon ascending, and then I think there were some that were set after Lyndon ascended.
Okay.
But I enjoyed it. It was really nice getting back to these fucking characters that I love. I know you obviously, I believe you said that you weren't too interested in it because you felt like a lot of their arcs, pretty much all of their arcs had, already finished, but...
It's not even about their arcs being finished, it's just... Their stories have very much come to a conclusion that is not the conclusion I was expecting or hoping for, to a certain extent. In the sense that, yes, I love that they had a happily ever after.
Right.
And their lives went on. That's great. I'm happy for them. But I think there were other things I wanted to see that I just didn't get in the context of the happily ever after.
What sort of things?
Like I said, I never wanted it to end at Cradle.
Right.
Because that's what I think that was my primary misconception, is that because there was such a big deal about, the path doesn't like end, and we've seen the ceiling. We have characters who are part of the ceiling,
Yeah.
and just the fact that I just expected there to be more
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. I thought that after their character arcs ended, there would be further plot arc, because the characters have had their arcs, but the plot, there's a lot of plot
Yes.
left.
So you will
And
definitely,
I was hoping
there is 100% stuff about.
there's definitely stuff that I'm going to enjoy there, yes,
Yes.
but I think part of it is just like I understand that White is kind of like he's told the story he wants to tell with these characters.
Mm.
I just wanted to hear more stories, and I think the place where he wanted to end and the place where I wanted it to end just differed.
I mean, look. Obviously,
Okay. Do you want me to make a comparison?
All right.
Do you know what the ending of Cradle felt like to me personally?
Go on.
A rom-com manga that ends at the confession.
Okay.
That's what it felt like to me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Where, okay, this cute, fluffy rom-com, they're finally together, and then it ends.
Yeah.
I wanted to see their life together. Right? Did you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's why that one series with the pink-haired girl and the very bad luck-prone boy appealed to me so much.
Shikimori.
Yes, Shikimori. Because it started post-confession.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes, this is what I want to see. There's another, there's a Yuri... I read a lot of Yuri, because I'm a disaster lesbian at heart. Don't read too much into that. Still cis, though.
Are you? Are you really?
Listen, for legal reasons, yes. But it had... There's one I just started reading. It's a complete series. It's a short series. It's 50 chapters. They're like 9 pages a chapter. The relationship confirmation happened at chapter 14. So there's like, yay, 36 more chapters of fluffy cuteness of them just being happy together.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. And that's sort of
how you feel about Cradle.
My feelings on Cradle, yes. Like, yay, in this case, replace confession with ascension.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I wanted to see the happily ever after.
Yeah.
I didn't just want to be told they lived happily ever after. I want to see some of the happily ever after.
Well, if nothing else, you'll get that with Threshold.
I'll get some of that, but I do worry that it'll just leave me wanting more, and that'll just sort of be a bit of a vicious cycle.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, because I feel similar in that, I've read it and going, man, I wish I got more with these characters sort of thing, but at the end of the day, things end, as much as I, sometimes wish they wouldn't.
I'm fine with it ending. I would just have liked it to give us a bit more of the after story.
Yeah. I wonder, I wonder if there's an element of I'm a little more accepting of it because I've read so much fan fiction for a series that only just finished, and so 90% of the time they just stopped in the middle of the story. Yeah,
you are, as a chronic fan fiction. I'm with you. It's not the case for... It's not just fan fiction. Do you have any idea how many really good manga and web novels there are where the translators just stop? Because it doesn't have an official release, and and so you're entirely dependent on the whims of the translator, and if the translator just stops releasing, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, the majority of the series I read, they're several years old.
Mm-hmm.
In their original language, they have reached their ending,
Yeah.
but they were only recently picked up by translators, and a lot of the time, do you know how? I don't think this is something that you possibly haven't run into because you don't run in the web novel circle. Do you know what's worse than a series being dropped by a translator or not being picked up by a translator?
Go on.
So you're aware of like the anti-sniping culture in the translation sphere, right? Because you read manga.
Yes, you know,
Occasionally.
don't steal
You're,
somebody. Don't start translating a manga that somebody else is already translating, sort of thing.
and do you know what the greatest struggle with that is with web novels?
Go on.
Is because of the increased work required in manga, even the worst translations are pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
But with web novels, that's not the case. And because the same anti-sniping culture exists, if a web novel
Is being badly
gets picked up
translated
by a bad
Yeah.
translator, then you're screwed.
Mm.
There is an exceptionally good Korean superhero story called I Became the Villain the Hero is Obsessed with. It is incredibly good on a number of levels.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's the MHA post-school rom-com sort of deal. It's like imagine if MHA was like post-school and the villains with sympathetic backstories were like the story was about them being redeemed and getting redemption arcs and sort of stuff.
I've probably read something similar in the MHA sphere.
Yeah. It's very good. The problem is it was picked up by a translator that literally just pops it into Google Translate and spits it out. And because they're a very prolific translation team, and they just did it quickly.
Yeah.
We're never going to get a good translation unless it gets an official English release, and these novels just don't get official English releases. Like, the proportion of good web novels that get an official English release, especially for the Korean ones I've noticed, very, very small. So, I never finished that series.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't get past the translation. It's to the point where I would have to basically there are two solutions to this. I would either have to have it translated by like a full-blown AI, which you know the reasons I'm not going to get into that, or I would have to spend far too much money paying a team to translate it properly. It's a lose-lose situation. It was one of my favorite novels. Like, and do you know how they get you? This is actually something. This is one of the most insidious practices, and this is why I don't pay for any web novels on Web Novel. I pirate them all.
Mm-hmm.
Web Novel, the website.
Yeah.
The free chapters are professionally translated. Everything after that is Google Translate.
Yeah.
So they hook you by having a professionally translated free 40 chapters, and then chapter 41 onwards is horrendous.
Yeah. Machine translated and badly done at that.
Yeah. Like, the worst part is, if it was like AI translated by like ChatGPT, the quality would be higher. They don't even bother to do that. It's bad enough. It's not even AI translated. It's machine translated. Just like literally they pop it into Google Translate.
Yeah.
Actually, in some of the cases, when you pop the raw text into Google Translate, it turns out better.
Yeah. So they're,
Than what
they're probably using an even worse translation software.
Software, yeah. So it's like, it's very difficult because there are good writers everywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think about that. There are good stories, fantastic stories, stories that have affected me and have changed my own preferences and tastes because of how good they were.
Yeah.
That I would never have seen if I didn't go looking for the translations. Granted, it's Sturgeon's Law, right?
Mm.
Like, most of it is bad. But there is no fundamental difference between a good English novel and a good Chinese novel and a good Korean novel and a good Japanese novel in terms of quality of writing.
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't a distinction.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that because I don't speak the language, I have to rely on translators, and it's just like the opportunity cost to learn the language is just not there.
Not to mention, it will be more difficult for, it is more difficult for certain people, especially people with certain mindsets and people with certain mental illnesses. Because hey,
Yes,
learning a language,
definitely someone you know. Not you're definitely talking about a friend. Yes, I get it.
learning a language takes focus, and some people can't do that. I'm not
It's
gonna.
not just that. It's like it's just some people's brains just aren't built for handling multiple languages after
Yeah.
a certain age.
And sometimes that certain age is like 5.
No, there are like that's an immersion thing. There are like when you're a child, you learn that language is much easier. That's just a biological fact.
You say that, and yet when I, tried to learn, I mean, I was not good at learning languages even as a kid.
Well, no. That what I mean by that is it requires the immersion aspect. Like, not. I don't mean like in terms of.
Oh, you mean actually being in there, speaking the language every day?
Yes. It requires like an environment. Obviously, that's a separate thing entirely. But like, formal learning of languages is difficult for everyone. Yeah. But again, yes, you were right that some people have more difficulties than others, for obvious reasons.
To be fair, it didn't help that I took German from when I was 11 until I was 16, and was actually pretty okay at it. And so I thought, hey, I'll take it for A levels qualifications you can do in Britain from 16 to 18. Got into A level German, and suddenly all the rules changed.
Yeah, because they just don't educate you properly. You know what happened? I got my first formal academic paper writing class the other day at my university's student learning center.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just apparently there's actually explicit guidelines that no one bothers to tell you when you go from high school to university. There's structures and plans and like things that you're just expected to know.
Yeah.
For some reason. It's like,
to be fair, I never found the structures I was taught really anywhere that useful. Because a lot of the time it's like, okay, well first you start off by writing a draft, and I'm like, or no, you write a plan about what you're gonna write. I was like, okay, and then you write a draft based on what you plan. Okay, and then you write the actual essay. And I'm like, can I not just write the essay?
Apparently not. So
I mean,
I've been given help in that regard as well.
I mean,
I've been told.
yeah, there was I got a little bit snarky about this kind of thing on a particular essay because certainly for my university essays we had to do a like fucking cover sheet type thing of like, oh, two things you think you did well, two things you think you did badly, and then there was a particular essay that I did that was like, oh, where it was basically it was in second year, and it was for a research paper module that was supposed to be basically preparing us to do our dissertation. So the research paper was 5,000 words, the dissertation was 10,000 words. So, you know, it's supposed to be preparing you to write that sort of length and that sort of, you know, detail. And to, you know, help us learn that kind of thing, they, you know, every week they did, you know, a fucking, like, lecture thing where they, you know, told you how to do this sort of stuff. How to, you know, plan and write and research and all that sort of shit. And for that, for the cover letter, they said something like, how did you, you know, how much did these, you know, lessons help you in writing this research paper? And I was like, and I basically put on mine, well, I was already doing the stuff that I was taught, so I'm not sure how useful it really was. Because I was. They were the biggest waste of time on the fucking planet. And, you know, the one thing that I did, or the, like, the main thing that I did get called up on, which was that my, I needed to, for a piece of writing that length, I needed to basically split it up into basically sections, you know, with, like, titles and all that sort of shit. That was not ever told to me as far as I remember.
Yeah, it's just very odd what they teach. For example, in my case, what I learned with the primary things is that there's a few things. Again, I think you might just be better. Your mental illnesses might just make you better at writing papers than me. Because in my case, there are three primary things I learned. The first one is that paragraphs have a standard length.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to splitting because apparently each paragraph is supposed to be a point or idea, and they have a standard length. Because I am used to splitting paragraphs wherever I can, because it's easier to read a fantasy novel if the paragraph splits are there.
Yeah.
Rather than a wall of text. But apparently, paragraphs have a standard length of half a page to 3/4 of a page. No one ever told me this. It never came up anywhere. And that each paragraph also has a very specific structure. Like there is a structure for every individual sentence in the paragraph. Again, I'd never been taught this.
Yeah.
I know how. Now that I've been taught, I'm like, oh, that's doable. I can actually do that. But it had never been told to me before.
Yeah.
And it's just like these things that are apparently supposed to be self-evident are just not very self-evident to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, the education system is borked, is what we're getting at.
And yet Trump wants to take it away.
Let's not get into that. I don't think we want to go into a depressive death spiral yet. I've been like, at this point, I have realized that for the sake of my health, I have to ostrich. Like, I had a like mental breakdown on a certain day that I think you know what day it was.
Yeah.
I had a mental breakdown where I was crying in my parents' room at 3 a.m. Because I was like,
I totally get it, because I didn't start crying, but I basically did have a sort of breakdown a couple of years ago between just everything that was happening with, fucking, just general bigotry on the rise, and the big sort of kicker was, Russia invading Ukraine, and the threat of what felt like a genuine threat of, nuclear war, especially considering the fact that at the time and still now, my parents, lived near a naval base with nuclear submarines, so which would likely be a target in the event of nuclear war.
Yeah.
And so, I stopped doing a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have stopped doing.
Yeah.
That shit just happens sometimes, and, it's... If you need to take a break from certain stuff for the sake of your mental health, then absolutely fucking do it.
Yes, the basic idea is that it was a thing. Anyway, on a less depressing note, yeah, the meds definitely are doing something.
Hmm.
And again, that if you can fall asleep on meth, you are definitely have the ADHD brain. Like, that was my biggest concern, right? Because I got a very perfunctory, very because ADHD tests are very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was gonna mention this to you. If it's just for the sake of taking and testing meds and getting a prescription, I can recommend a pretty like a cheap thing that will at least get you a diagnosis and get you on medication.
Let's have a talk about that off stream.
Okay, but anyway, in my case, it was a very perfunctory test, so I was a bit concerned. Like, the what I fondly like to call mental illness imposter syndrome.
Yes.
The constant conflict of, wait, am I really mentally ill, or am I just stupid, lazy, and faking it?
You mean the reason I haven't gone to a therapist yet? Or one of the reasons, anyway.
Yes, that one. And listen, as a person who will eventually become a professional, my brother in Christ, you've got the tism. Probably. Don't quote me on that.
Here's the thing. Rationally, yeah, I know that. Logically, I know that. I talk enough with, you, with Jack, with other people with the mental illnesses that I have for me, and I've done enough research on my own time to know that, yeah, 90 to 95% says that I have the, certain mental illnesses that I should probably go see somebody about. And then there's that fucking annoying, stupid part of my brain that goes, what if you're wrong, though? What if you've been subconsciously faking it to fit in better, sort of thing?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest helps with my medication was it kind of, like, very concretely cleared that doubt for me. Because I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to... Stimulants aren't supposed to make you sleepy unless you actually have the neurological condition.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, well, I guess I have that. So it's not a complete... I still wonder, which is this just a placebo effect?
Yeah.
But it's something. But yeah, I definitely need to adjust the dosage and maybe even like the specific medication.
Hmm.
But I do, and it's not a cure-all,
Yes.
right? Like it doesn't make my mental illnesses go away, but it does make certain things easier.
Hmm.
So yeah,
I
it's
mean, honestly, if it could just get me more able to fucking write, I'd love that. Because I want to write, and sometimes there's just, this thing in my brain that just won't let me.
Oh, I've learned that there's a term for the kind of thing I need. You know how I said I can't do anything unless there's someone in the room with me telling me to do it?
Yeah?
There's a term for that.
It's doubling?
It's body doubling, yeah.
Yeah.
I only recently learned this.
Mm.
It's very exciting for me to know that this is not an experience I have alone.
Mm.
You know what? It's a shame that our
Yeah, because I'm the opposite.
we're into
I get
yeah.
distracted if there's somebody else there.
Yeah, it's a shame that we're like in that situation because otherwise, then if we were in the same situation, if we both needed body doubling, we could just do that for each other and that would be
Yeah.
fine. But like,
Unfortunately,
it's
no.
unfortunate that
I am. I am the other side of that. If there's somebody that. The amount of times, especially in university, when I'd meet up with somebody at the library to study, and I'd barely get anything done until they left, and then I'd do my fucking studying.
yeah. And meanwhile, I just can't study in general. But I definitely can't do it if there's no one to tell me to.
Yeah. I mean, another thing is that I'm fairly sure I've got a annoying case of demand avoidance. If somebody tells me to do something, I'm less likely to do it.
Yes, I have noticed that. It's one of those things that can. It's entirely involuntary and out of your control, but it definitely makes life a lot harder in many ways.
Yeah.
I have elements of that, but it's generally something that is not as intense for me,
Yeah.
so it doesn't bother me as much. Also, this is very off topic, but I was hoping to talk with you more about this because okay. Do you want me to say one thing that one place where our mental illnesses differ greatly?
Go on.
It's wild to me, like watching you and Gen talk about Dragon Age Veilguard. It is wild to me that you can just sit down and play a game and finish and beat it over the course of a few weeks.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that.
To be
I
fair,
simply cannot do that.
it is.
Yeah.
Veilguard is an exception to this for me, and it is because Dragon Age is one of those. It's essentially a hyperfixation for me, and it's one that I am, Veilguard has thankfully been able to tap back into for me. It also helps the fact that I'm not working right now, so
True.
I don't have to worry about being too fucking exhausted or stressed from work to play it. But there are a lot of games where I'm not able to sit down and play them in the few weeks after I get it. I still haven't finished fucking God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, and
I've had that game for so long. I still haven't fucking finished it. There are other games I'm sure I could fucking point to of I've had these games for a while. I started playing them, then I got distracted by something, and I've not played them since.
it's not even a matter of not liking the game.
No, I love the games. I love playing fucking Ragnarok. But, you know,
Yeah,
I just get distracted. Part of it is the fact that, you know, I just don't have somewhere comfortable to game on my PS4 at the moment. I've got chairs, but they're not the most comfortable to sit in for an extended gaming session. And, you know, one thing that I do, do even with Veilguard is that I will be, looking on my phone or my other monitor at stuff.
yeah, and another issue I've run into is that, in a similar vein, I have a comfortable gaming setup, but the issue is that I feel very uncomfortable gaming with other people around, with the exception of, like, streaming.
Yeah.
Like, with my family around and the possibility that they're just going to come in at any time, which I think stems from a sense of sort of it does stem from the imposter syndrome and guilt.
Yeah.
In the sense that, oh, I'm ashamed to be playing games because I should instead be productive right now.
Yes.
So I can only comfortably play games in the dead of the night when the rest of my family is asleep, except I'm not as young as I used to be, and all-nighters are harder.
Yes.
And so I end up only having the energy for a proper gaming session once every few days, and because of that, it's easy to lose focus, get distracted, and just, like, not continue.
No, I totally get that. When I first got Ragnarok was when I was still living with my parents, and part of the reason I didn't fucking play it was the fact that, I didn't want to do it where they could, hear it and it could disturb them, sort of thing. Especially with my, if my stepdad came in who does not have the, highest opinion of my hobbies.
Yeah, and it's like, it's just, that sort of bleeds into and affects your enjoyment of it, even when the circumstances do allow it. I also have this thing where I don't like to be on a time constraint. For example, there are periods of the day where I'm alone at home when my parents are at work.
Yeah.
However,
but you look at the time period where you're actually going to be alone and go, I don't know if it's worth actually doing a fucking gaming session in that amount of time that I've got.
Exactly.
Which,
especially
again,
when it's
I totally get. That's unfortunately something I've got with writing.
Yeah, in my case it's a bit different because for me writing is something that I have actually been actively controlling the amounts of time to sort of work up to avoiding burnout. Like yesterday I wrote a full 2200 something word short story. Oh, I'm at my computer. Let me send that to you real quick. But I wrote the whole thing in one sitting in about 45 minutes. That's how fast and how intensely I am capable of writing at times. But the issue is that is something that I can't do on command. And what I'm trying to do is, rather than forcing myself to write for as long as possible, I'm trying to, like, do a very specific amount of words, and then when my brain starts to get a little foggy, I stop.
Yeah.
Rather than forcing myself and risking burnout. And I found that I am slowly increasing. I initially set a goal of 100 words per day. Very small, I know.
No, that's not, that's good.
But the problem is that I can't keep it consistent, and there's just days I can't do it, and it sort of resets my count. But I found that if I can keep a streak going of writing, then it goes slowly. It increases naturally on its own from 100 to 150 to 200 until I'm able to have days after like a week or so, or 2 or 3 of warming up. I'm able to have like a stretch of days where I'm writing 500 words a day or more. The problem is that it's such a process, and it can lead to burnout in the opposite way, where you get impatient really easily. But yes, on the subject of gaming, I have very strong feelings on Nier Automata. I'm sure you're aware of this.
I'm not 100% sure if I am.
Well, good, because you've played through the whole game like once, right? And you're replaying it on screen?
Yeah.
Like, gotten all the endings and everything?
Yes.
So, again, I tried for a long time to avoid spoilers.
Right.
But after a certain point, I was like, it's looking like I'm just never going to play the game. But rather than just doing a wiki dive and fully spoiling it for myself, I just checked like little tidbits of information. For example, character status. I wanted to know who was alive at the end and who was not.
Yeah.
And obviously that led me to the wiki, which showed me, oh, so the mains, they do live in certain endings. I'm trying to avoid spoiling as much as possible, but as I did a deep dive of like the supplementary material as well, for example, that are not directly related to the events of the game. And then I came to a conclusion. Or rather, I learned something about a part of the fandom that made me come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
There are people who believe that Nier Automata is not a love story, and they are very stupid.
Yep.
I'm glad I did not accidentally insult you there.
No, of course not. I mean, it's going back to something that I think it was Meat posted in the Discord like a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
apparently Yoko Taro wanted a fucking sex scene in the Nier anime, which, he probably wouldn't have gotten anyway, but the reason he was turned down was some Aniplex executive going, well, Ninus doesn't want to fuck 2B, does he? And it's like, my brother in Christ, it's in the game!
That's literally his entire character arc is about how much he wants to do exactly that!
Like, there is a legitimate, like, fucking, like, pop-up at some point. I haven't gotten to it, on my playthrough yet, where, like...
You want a blank 2B, don't you?
Yeah.
And there's, like... There is... very, very few words that fit that context, and all of them indicates how thirsty 9S is.
At the very least, it indicates that there is romantic feelings there. There is,
And there's literally the story is about the implications of how it's mutual.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's...
No, I do not understand people who say that. I do not understand them at all.
Also, I'm still not entirely sure if that Yoko Taro's story is true or not.
I don't know.
I absolutely believe Yoko Taro would advocate for that.
I 100% would believe that, yeah.
I just don't know if the reason he was turned out was really a reason like that, or if it was just the general reason of they wanted to keep it more they wanted to avoid liability.
They didn't want to fucking in-species review it.
Yes. But yes, I absolutely, to the point where literally there's strong hints and implications that these MFers are reincarnations of characters who were also in love with each other from the original Nier.
Yeah. Which I will play at some point. I've got Replicant.
It's one of those things where it's like, the problem is, while it is, the remake is good, it's an older game, and the age shows a little bit. Like some gameplay hiccups that you can have. But, yeah, I'm just like, what even is media literacy?
It is non-existent.
But, okay. This is something that, like, I joke about the Yuri fans. You know, about how Starlight is just about good friends and things like that. Something like Nier Automata is one that really makes me sympathize with them a lot more.
I mean, here's the thing. Having been in the sort of position of a lot of Yuri fans, it's less lacking media literacy and more just being overly hopeful.
For a lot of Yuri fans, yes. Again, this is why I tend to not read Yuri unless I know for a fact, no, this is very explicit about it. Right? Because, one, I don't like that the authors can have plausible deniability. So, like, I'm less mad at the Yuri fans and more mad at the state of the world.
Yeah, that
forces it to be relegated to subtext.
Yes. No, absolutely on that front.
But with stories like Nier Automata, I really, really sympathize. But the thing about Nier Automata is that people need to understand the difference between subtext and non-traditional expressions of text. Like, Witch from Mercury, for example.
Yeah.
Which everyone except the publisher, including the creators, I'm pretty sure, agree is a story about disaster lesbians.
Yes.
And they get married at the end and live happily ever after. Everyone agrees on that.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is that is text. That is not subtext. Just because they did not explicitly say, yes, we love each other, we are married and engaging in lesbian things. Just because they don't explicitly say that does not mean it's not text. It's not subtext. When characters have rings on their fingers and make promises to be together forever and things like that.
Yeah.
That's just text. It's non-explicit text, but people tend to confuse non-explicit text with subtext and therefore are dismissive of it in the same way that they can be dismissive of subtext, because subtext is open to interpretation much more so than text.
Yes.
And Nier Automata is not just text, it's big, bold, flashing neon text. Just because they don't kiss on screen does not mean it's subtext.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure, like, you know what I'm saying, right? Nier Automata, there's Yoko Taro is good at many things. Or rather, he chooses to be good at many things. Subtext is not something he chooses to engage with.
No, he doesn't bother with it. He does not bother with it at all. He just goes, fuck that. Subtext is boring. I wanna be as clear as I can with this.
Except when he chooses to be clear with it, but not have, like, traditional normative
Well,
expressions affected.
he also finds normal doing stuff normally boring. So, you know.
You say that, but like a pretty traditional dramatic, like Nier Automata is a pretty traditional dramatic love story. Like, yeah, some stuff happens, but just that's flavor, right? Like, it's just like at its core, it's pretty normal, I think. Or is that just because I have a similar mind to Yoko Taro?
It might be that might have something to do with it.
Because you've read my works.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. When I grow up, I want to be Yoko Taro.
Need to get a funny mask.
Well, I have. Well, we've discussed this before. The duck head.
Yeah.
Duck head in a three-piece suit. I'm just scared to go down that rabbit hole. Because it's going to be very difficult to explain to a fursuit designer that I'm not a furry.
Honestly, I just wouldn't bother.
They wouldn't believe me anyway, would they?
No. How many times do you think they've gotten a commission from somebody for, like, a fucking full fursuit with, like, so much fucking detail, and the person's gone, but I'm not a furry. Don't think that. I'm not a furry. It's almost like fucking the people who stick something up their ass that they really shouldn't and are forced to call call emergency medical services and are like, oh no, I tripped and fell on it. They don't really fucking care.
Or rather, they have been baptized by, you are not the first person they're going to see in this situation, and you will not be the last.
Mm-hmm.
Unless that's the day they're going to retire.
Even then, they'll probably see something or other.
True. I'm so glad I'm not into that sort of thing. Like, I'm not trying to kink shame. I'm just more like, that seems like a lot more trouble than it's worth to me. I'm glad I am not into it.
I mean, it depends.
Like, if you are into it, you do you. Like, more power to you. But like,
so when you say you're not into it, is it the sticking of random things up there, or just the sticking things up there in general?
Just butt stuff in general.
It can be a little intensive, yeah, but can be sometimes worth it.
I'm just, my feelings on the human body. It's a disgusting prison of meat and fluids that shackles the mind and soul. Not a fan. Just like, I always wonder, like, I have that with the Airways stuff as well, where I'm like, am I a fake Airways person? Am I just doing it for attention? And then I realized that the very idea of engaging in intercourse is just deeply repulsive to me. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So,
I mean, here's the thing. I can't tell whether my lack of desire to have do that is to do with me actually being ace and sex repulsed, or if it's mental illness.
Both is good.
Both is not good. I would prefer clarity. It would make me feel better.
Okay. Well, I'm saying it could be both, but also, there's also the case that
the mental illness probably doesn't help.
It definitely doesn't. There's another possibility, is that you're a demi, because it can be very hard to tell the difference.
Yeah.
which that's an entirely different conversation on the increase in social isolation in the modern day, and the death of third spaces and all that. But yeah, you definitely could be Demi. I mean, so okay. For the sake of argument, I suppose I could also be Demi. But in my case, I think
That's sort of the issue. It's very hard to prove a lack of something.
yes. Yes. Now, here's the thing. Here's the reason I think I'm not. In my case, I'm pretty sure it is both mental illness and just my orientation. However, there is some constructive interference going on with the two. Is that because of my mental illness, I'm pretty sure I'm solidly aromantic. Which sort of precludes the Demi classification. In the sense that the types of emotional bonds that I can form with people tend to be a bit more limited. Plus, I'm a naturally low empathy individual. I have, like, the way that I can form emotional bonds are more limited. There's actually there's an interesting topic of conversation, but that I have, but it's something I think you'll find interesting, but I will talk to you about it off stream. Because it's a bit too sensitive for stream and involves some personal information.
Right.
So we'll look forward to that. But basically I'm precluding the concept that I'm Demi on those grounds. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where there's a certain compatibility between my perceived orientation and my mental illnesses, which it's probably not. Remember, kids, compatibility doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing. In some cases, it's called comorbidity. If you know what I'm saying. So yes, I think more accurately it would be that my orientation and my ism are comorbid. But yes, it's very hard to tell whether or not you're Demi. I have my reasons for believing I'm not, but I take it it's less clear in your case.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very complicated thing. But yes, I can at least be confident on the sex repulsed thing for a number of reasons. But yeah. Just anyway, I really like the story of Nier Automata. Like, it's gotten to the point where I have inadvertently spoiled myself on certain plot beats. But Nier Automata, from what I understand, and I believe this is true, is a journey before destination sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's why, even after being spoiled, I can enjoy things. It's why certain moments, like in One Piece, you know the moment I'm talking about, I cry every time.
Yes.
Or even if I don't cry outright, I tear up every time, even though I know what's going to happen, because the experience of it is different from knowing it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, I am very confident. Oh, by the way, have you gone on the Nier deep dive?
In what sense?
Like the fact that ending E has an epilogue?
Yes. I think I got the epilogue.
No. I'm talking about the one that is exclusive to the musical.
Oh, then no.
Yeah. There's actually an ending. Not only is there an ending that is exclusive to the musical, there's a troll ending. So Yoko Taro foresaw the possibility of leaks. So the script that got leaked for the musical contained an extremely depressing downer ending that was not actually the ending of the musical.
Sounds like Yoko Taro.
Yeah. I would recommend. Hang on, let me find a link. It's very good. The performance obviously is done by the voice actors and everything, so it's But yeah, there's a lot of like supplementary material.
I mean, I do have the novelization of the game, which I did read like a while ago now.
Yeah, it's not in that either. So it's called Farewell.
Mm-hmm.
So it when you see the so do you know what's even funnier? I'm gonna warn you about this because it can be a shock. Even on the wiki page, what's shown is the depressing leaked script.
Right.
And there's the actual ending is in a little tab that you have to manually expand at the bottom of the page.
Right. Well, I'm not gonna do it while I'm still playing the game.
Obviously, yeah, but I will leave the link in your DMs.
Right.
So that you can get the proper epilogue after you're done. But yeah, it is nice. It is a very good, like, it ties up the story nicely. And again, to me, knowing how it ends makes me look forward to the game more in this sense. Because I'm like, oh, okay. I understand that the story, the journey, the way the story is told is so much more important than just the cold, hard facts of what happens.
Yeah.
So I am actually now, I've downloaded Nier, I've installed the mods that make it visually a bit better. And it's just that intimidation of it's a long game, and I don't want to play it only in 3-hour bursts. I want to like play it until I reach a natural stopping point, so I can only do it at night, which means I have to do an all-nighter, so it's like there have been things getting in the way of it, but I am determined to play through it. Because like,
do you want to
I'm
play
a sucker.
I mean, I know you said you don't want to do it in bursts, but do you want to play it on stream? I can stop my playthrough and you can play it instead.
No, and I'll tell you my reasons for that later, but off stream. But there's some games that I would love to play. I enjoy playing on stream, but there are certain games that I just, for example, Metaphor. I don't think Metaphor is a game that I love the game from the demo. I haven't bought it yet because I'm. First of all, it's been a rough couple of months financially for the family, and also I haven't bought it yet because and I'm waiting for the. I guess I might even wait for the updated re-release, but honestly, I'm also waiting for. It's complicated, but Metaphor is not a game I will play on stream. Even though I think it could be fun. There's just certain games that I prefer to enjoy on my own.
Yeah.
I think Nier and Metaphor are both one of them, and Final Fantasy XIV is actually similar. I've actually considered doing some, for some of our chatting streams, sometimes I do my dailies and the grinding in Final Fantasy 14 in the background anyway.
Yeah.
While I'm chatting. So I figured maybe I can stream that some days, but I will never do like the content that's actually important to me, the story content.
Yeah.
Of FF14 on stream for a variety of reasons.
Mm.
But yes, I'm looking forward to playing it because I am honestly a sucker for a good love story, especially one that has a relatively happy ending. Right? Like,
yeah,
Yoko Taro games are memed on for being like the epitome of depression. And granted, that was the case for both Drakengard and the original release of Nier. But Nier Automata and Nier Replicant, and I think Nier Reincarnation, though that is harder to get into, partially because the official servers are dead, so you'd have to get an emulated mod copy, which I don't even know if you can anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But he's definitely gone in the direction of having the final true ending sort of be much more happy. Because, like, let me tell you, Drakengard, which is where the Nier universe comes from, it's like, what if you took the 9S2B story but made it depressing?
Yeah.
And, like, not have a satisfying conclusion. Because that is what happens in all but the first ending of Drakengard.
Yeah.
All of the other endings are not as satisfactory as ending 1, which is the most shallow ending. And I know Yoko Taro likes to say that all endings are canon, but because all endings are canon, I can choose to live in a world where only one ending is canon. And I choose the one where everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah.
Oh! And, this will make a bit more sense later on, but I saw a very interesting post that made me realize something. People were upset that the cover of Nier Automata was never an in-game moment on screen. Like, in-game.
Yeah.
When you reach the end of the game and read Farewell, some things will make sense.
Anyway, we've hit 2 hours, and I've locked myself out of my house, so,
In real life, or?
No, in-game.
Okay. Look, you nearly gave me a heart attack there.
Yeah, I sorta sold the door to my shack, and instead of just leaving an empty space, it just left a wall.
That's probably not great. No?
I'm fairly sure I can buy a door and put it in there, but I feel like this is a funnier moment to end on.
Oh no, absolutely. It's quality.
But yes, thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed. In terms of future stuff, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, as always. Please do give us a follow here on Twitch and all that YouTube stuff.
Like, subscribe, leave a comment if you enjoyed the video, and hit that bell icon. It really helps.
And otherwise, hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday. Good night.
Bye-bye.